Now think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Think!
I can't think. My head's numb.
Mrs. Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out in here. I couldn't think it turned it on so loud. I wouldn't hear anything else with that, would I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea. Or murderess.
Could I hear anything else?
You might have done. If the killer had come from the hall that way, he may have heard you coming from the kitchen and slipped up the back stairs or into the dining room.
I'm not sure. I heard a door creak and shut just as I came out of the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, left, right.
I don't know, I tell you. I'm not even sure if I heard anything.
Can't you leave her alone? Can't you see she's all in?
We're investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to now, no one has taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. And unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly, mind, there may be another death.
Another? Nonsense. Why?
Because there were 3 little blind mice.
A death for each of them? But that means there would have to be some connection. I mean, another connection with the Longridge farm business.
Yes, there would have to be that.
But why another death here?
Because there were only 2 addresses written in that notebook we found. Now, at 24 Culver Street, there was only 1 possible victim. She's dead. Here at Monkswell Manor, there's a wide field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both of them with a share in the Longridge farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be so much of a coincidence. Think it out, Miss Casewell. Now, I want to get down quite clearly where everyone was at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came along the passage, through the swing door, and into the hall and in here. The radio was blaring and the light was switched off, and the hall was dark. You switched the light on, saw Mrs. Boyle, and screamed.
Yes, I screamed, and at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people came from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now, when I went out that window to trace the telephone wire, you, Mr. Ralston, were upstairs in the room you and Mrs. Ralston occupied to try the extension telephone. Where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in the bedroom. The extension telephone was dead too. I looked out the window to see if I could see any signs of the wires being cut there. I couldn't. Just as soon as I closed the window, I heard Mollie scream and I rushed down.
Those simple actions took you rather a long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
I should say you definitely took your time with them.
I was thinking about something.
Very well. Now then, Mr. Wren, I'll have your account of where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. After that, I went up to my bedroom.
Why?
Well, it's quite a normal thing to go up to one's bedroom, isn't it? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone?
And I wanted to brush my hair and tidy up.
You wanted to brush your hair?
Well, anyway, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream?
Yes.
And you came down?
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs on the way down.
I came down by the back stairs. They're closer to my room.
Did you go up by the back stairs, or did you come up through here?
I went up by the back stairs too.
I see. Mr. Paravicini?
I have told you, I was playing the piano in the drawing room. Through there, Inspector.
Oh, I'm not an inspector, just aside. Now, did anyone else hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very, very softly. With one finger, so.
You were playing 3 blind mice.
Is that so?
It is a catchy little tune. It is, how shall I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
Yet, it runs in people's head. Someone was whistling it too.
Whistling it? Where?
I'm not sure. Perhaps in the front hall, perhaps on the stairs, perhaps even upstairs in a bedroom.
Who was whistling 3 blind mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Paravicini?
No, Inspector. I beg your pardon. Sergeant, I would not do a thing like that.
Well, Go on. You were playing three blind mice.
With one finger. So! And then I hear the radio playing very loud. Someone is shouting at it. It offended my ears. And then after that, I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs. Mr. Wren upstairs. Mrs. Paravicini in the drawing room. Miss Casewell.
I was writing letters in the library.
Did you hear what was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
I think so.
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you came in hurriedly and came in here.
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letters on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, a friend or a relation?
That's none of your damn business.
Perhaps not. You know, Miss Casewell, if I were to hear someone scream blue murder, I don't believe I'd take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my pocket before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't? How interesting.
Major Metcalf, you say you were in the cellars. Why?
Looking around, just looking around. I looked into the cupboard placed under the stairs near the kitchen. A lot of drunken sports tackle. I noticed there was another door inside. I opened it and I saw a flight of steps. I was curious, so I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
Glad you like them.
Not at all. Crypt of the old monastery, I should say. Perhaps why this place is called Monks.
We're not engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. Mrs. Ralston states that she heard a door shut at the faint creak. That particular door shuts at the faint creak. Could be, you know, that after hearing Mrs. Ralston scream, the killer may have slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door after him.
Lots of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard door.
And mine are there, all right. But most criminals are careful to wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual, yes, but all criminals slip up sooner or later.
Do you really think that's true?
Look here, aren't we wasting time? There's only one person here who could possibly be the
I'm
murderer.
in charge of this investigation, Mr. Ralston.
Very well, but I just thought you'd want to know.
Mr. Ralston! Thank you. We've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And let me tell you this. You all had opportunity.
Please, have everything.
There are two staircases. Anyone could come down by one and go up by the other. Anyone could go down to the cellars by the door near the kitchen and come up by a flight of steps that leads through the trap door in there. The vital fact was that every one of you was alone at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
But look here, Sergeant. You speak as though we were all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know very well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it was the eldest of those 3 children at the farm, a mentally abnormal young man who is now 23 years of age. Well, there's only one person here who fits the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. Everybody's always been against me. You're going to frame me for a murder. It's persecution. That's what it is. Persecution.
Very glad to stay.
It's all right, Chris. It's all right. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's going to be all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anyone. To do that, I have to have evidence. Haven't gotten any evidence. Yet.
I think you're crazy, Mollie. And you too. There's only one person here who fits the bill. And if only as a safety measure, he ought to be put under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Wait, Giles. Sergeant Trotter, can I speak to you a minute?
Of course, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you please go to the dining room?
I'm staying.
No. You too, please.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Mollie.
Please.
Well, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you wanted to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that this crazy killer must be the eldest of those 3 children at the farm? You don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we know is that the woman who assisted her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed. The woman who was responsible for placing them there has also been killed. The telephone wire that links me to police headquarters has been cut.
But you don't even know that. They have just been the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, it was deliberately cut. It's cut right outside your front door. I found the place.
I see.
Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
All the same, you don't know.
I'm very high probability. It all points one way. Childish mentality, mental instability, desertion from the army, and the psychiatrist's report.
I know, and therefore it all seems to point to Christopher. But I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, hadn't those children any relations at all?
The mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken from her.
What about the father?
The father was an army sergeant. He's still alive. He's probably discharged from the army by now.
And you don't know where he is now?
We've no information, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, the police are taking every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he may be at this minute. And if the son's mentally unstable, the father may be unstable too.
It's a possibility.
If he came home after being a prisoner of war perhaps, and having suffered terribly, if he came home and found his wife dead, and that his children had gone through some terrible experience, and that one of them had died through it, he might go off his head a bit and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
So, the murderer may be middle-aged, or even old. When I said the police had rung up, Major Metcalf looked frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
Middle-aged, a soldier. He seems quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So, it's not only Christopher who's a suspect. There's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Well, Mr. Paravicini did drop the poker when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Paravicini?
I know he seems quite old and foreign and everything, but he mightn't be as old as he looks. He moves like a much younger man, and he's definitely got makeup on his face. Miss Casewell noticed it too. He might be... I know it sounds very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you? That it shouldn't be young Mr. Wren?
He seems so helpless somehow, and so unhappy.
Mrs. Ralston, I can assure you, we've had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy, Georgie, the father, and someone else. There was a sister, you know.
The sister?
It could have been a woman who killed Marine Lion. A woman. Muffler pulled up, felt hat pulled well down. The killer spoke in a whisper. It's the voice that gives the sense away. Yes, Mrs. Ralston, it could have been a woman.
Miss Casewell?
She seems a bit old for the part, but... Oh yes, there's a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
You're about the right age.
Sergeant, I've never done anything
No,
of the sort.
no. I have no means of checking your statement, remember. Then there's your husband.
Giles, don't be silly.
Him and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say, your husband looks older than his years, and Christopher Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Don't be ridiculous.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London. We went to a party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead.
Yes, but you make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister, and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he told you.
Yes, but it's
You don't know it of your own knowledge?
outrageous. But you might think
Mrs.
that,
Ralston, you'd be surprised how many cases rather like yours we get. Homes broken up and families killed. Fellow says he's just been in the Air Force or just finished his army training. Parents killed, no relations. There aren't any backgrounds nowadays, and young people settle their own affairs. They meet and marry. Often it's been a year or two before she finds out that he's an absconding bank clerk or an army deserter or something equally undesirable. How long had you known your husband before you married him?
just 3 weeks, but
And you don't know anything about him?
that's not true. I know everything about him. I I know exactly the sort of person he is. He's Giles. It's absolutely absurd for you to suggest that he's some crazy homicidal maniac. He wasn't even in London yesterday when the murder took place.
Where was he? Here?
He had to go off in the car to look for some chicken netting.
Bring it back with him?
No, it turned out to be the wrong car.
Only 30 miles from London, are you? Oh. You got an ABC? Hour by train. A little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. Is this your husband's coat?
Yes?
Evening news. Yesterday's. Sold in the streets of London about 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
Don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Mollie,
Started.
where's he gone?
Who?
The sergeant.
He went out that way.
If only I could get away. Somehow, some way. Is there any way I could hide in the house?
Hide?
That's from him.
But why?
Darling, they're also frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders. Particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Listen, Christopher. You have to want running away from things all your life.
What makes you say that?
Quite true, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite true.
Got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name isn't really Christopher Wren, is it?
No,
And you're not really training to be an architect.
no.
Why?
I call myself Christopher Wren. It just amused me. And then they all used to laugh at me in school and call me Little Christopher Robin. Robin. Wren. Association of Ideas. It was hell being in school.
What's your real name?
You needn't go into that. I ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was all so beastly. I hated it. Yes. I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told you I was the one the specification fitted. And then my mother. My mother.
Yes, your mother?
Everything would have been all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me and looked after me.
Can't go on being looked after all your life. Things happen to you. And you've got to bear them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Has it to do with Giles?
No. It was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young. Almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. It was horrible. Horrible. I try never to think about it. I try to put it out of my mind.
So you're running away from things too? Running away from things instead of facing them?
Yes. I suppose in a way I am. Considering that I never saw you until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes. It's odd, isn't it?
Don't know. I feel as though there's a sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out?
Well, frankly, what else can you do?
I might pinch the sergeant's skis. I can ski quite well.
That would be frightfully stupid. Be almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Trotter thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't. At least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him.
Who?
Sergeant Trotter. He puts things in your head. Things that aren't true. Things that can't possibly be true.
What's all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What won't you believe? Come on, out with it!
You see that?
Yes?
What is it? Yesterday's evening paper. A London paper. And it was in Giles's pocket. But Giles didn't go to London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day,
Well, he
then
wasn't. He went to a sale to get some chicken netting, but he couldn't find any.
Well, that's all right. Probably he did go to London after all.
Then why shouldn't he tell me he did? I pretend he'd been racing all around the countryside.
Perhaps with the news of these murders,
But
he
he
felt
didn't
that
know about the murder. Or did he? Did he?
Good Lord, Mollie. Surely you don't think the sergeant doesn't
I
think
don't care what the sergeant thinks. You make you think things about people. You ask yourself questions. And you begin to doubt. You feel that somebody you love, I know well, might be a stranger. So that's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends. Suddenly you look at their faces and they're not your friends any longer. They're different people. Just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anybody. Perhaps everyone's a stranger.
I seem to be interrupting something.
No, we were just talking. Let's go to the kitchen and get one of the vegetables.
I'll come and give you a hand.
No, you won't.
Giles.
Tete-a-tete aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife.
But really, look
You
here.
keep away from my wife, friend. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think of me.
I've already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in this house, and it seems to me you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one who fits the bill.